that rain just seems like it wants to stick around.
Yep.
Keep looking at the skies. We got more tonight?
We do have more tonight. We'll see a few more scattered showers make their way through the Tennessee Valley tonight and into tomorrow morning. Then we'll have a break going into the afternoon tomorrow before seeing some scattered showers again going into the evening hours. And then we go to Tuesday, and that's our 31 alert day. We'll see a chance for some strong to severe storms making their way through the Tennessee Valley. Main threats being some damaging wind as well as large hail and a low-end tornado threat. Come back for more details. Timing is going to change. Details are going to change. We'll know more as Tuesday comes closer. Wednesday, though, looking like it's going to be the best day of the week. Temperatures are going to be in the upper 70s. Lots of sunshine to end the work week, and then rain chances come back into the forecast for the rest of the weekend and starting the work week next week.
Very good. Thank you, Lady. A reminder to download that WAAY weather app. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. WAAY 31 Law Call is next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night. So call in your questions on everything from car accidents to getting the wrong medication prescribed to you. The 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air, or you can also text us to that same number and we'll read some of your texts tonight. You can also email a question on any legal topic any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waytv.com. And when we get to a show that's on point, we pull out some of your email questions, and we've got some of your email questions ready for tonight. Also ready for tonight, Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake League. And Brooks, good to have you here tonight.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Great, nice day today. You know, I saw a rainbow.
Really?
It rained for a while,
Yes.
and then, you know, a big rainbow came out. Really nice day.
We can talk about storms and storm damage and things like that to get ready for. Timberlake League and Brooks also do personal injury cases, so that's everything from car accidents to medical malpractice.
Any way you get hurt, whether that's product, whether that's a malpractice issue, whether that's you know, a car wreck, a fall in some store somewhere, you know, we'll assist you and move you through that process as best we can. That's right.
While we get some phone calls locked in, we like to show you tonight's You Make the Law Call clip. We pulled something off Facebook. So this case, you know, you want to eat inside or do you want to drive through the restaurant?
Oh.
The decision, watch out. Ooh.
Oh.
These folks were so lucky that they didn't take another few steps there. This driver couldn't make up his mind whether he wants to be inside or outside. The restaurant was mostly completely empty when this happened, though, so what could have been deadly was not. Looking at this from different points of view, you know, if you're the folks walking through there, are you, obviously the driver is at fault, it seems like. Would the restaurant also have any kind of responsibility for this?
Probably not, you know, and the sad thing is that we have had this type of case before where a vehicle lost control, ran into a restaurant and hurt somebody inside the restaurant.
Wow.
You know, and the vehicle owner had lost control. Actually, I think that driver had been drinking a little too much that night. So vehicle owner lost control, ran into the building, actually hurt somebody that was sitting at a table eating their meal. So, you know, and then we brought a claim on behalf of that person who, against the insurance company of the car. You know, one thing about the two individuals that are walking through there, Alabama is one of the few states that doesn't have emotional distress for almost being hurt. If you are in some sort of an incident, a car wreck, a fall, anything like that, or see somebody get hurt, generally you don't have a claim. Even though it may cause you post-traumatic stress disorder, it may cause you mental anguish, it may cause you a lot of problems, mental problems, unless you have a physical injury, then you cannot make a claim. There is one exception to that rule in the state of Alabama. If you are very close to someone who is injured, very close, I mean, the same vehicle, the car passes right in front of you, they get hit, you can make an emotional distress damage claim. And that very rare here. Most other states have this emotional distress damage, even if you're not physically injured, but not the state of Alabama. So those folks that are walking through that store, they're out of luck. They weren't hurt, thank goodness.
Well, thank goodness they weren't hurt. Does it make a difference? Okay, so if the person that is driving the car had alcohol, that's one thing.
Yes.
If the person driving the car had a medical problem, so they didn't do anything reckless, does that make a difference?
It does. And so the state of Alabama has something called a sudden medical emergency. And if you are driving down the road and at that time you end up having a stroke, or you end up having a heart attack, or a diabetic seizure, any number of things can cause you to have a medical emergency when you're driving your car. and that causes you to break a law, cross the center line, run a red light, run into a restaurant, then you cannot be blamed for the injuries that you cause if you did have a sudden medical emergency. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule too. If you are someone who has a known seizure disorder, or you are someone who is known to pass out while you're driving, and then you do, the ball game shifts a little bit to where you can actually be considered a reckless driver at that point in time.
Because you're still doing it. You knew you shouldn't be doing it.
You know,
too dangerous.
That's right. You know that there is a risk.
Okay.
You are aware of that risk and you disregard it.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Cherry on the line with a question from Athens. Hi, Cherry. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, I surrendered my German Shepherd puppy to a rescue facility, supposedly for a German Shepherd. She is a female, 1-year-old, 9-month-old female German Shepherd, unneutered. I did the profile, they asked pictures, and I took her to this facility. They told me that she would be transferred to a German Shepherd rescue facility. I left her there for 2 days. I was checking on her constantly. The third day that I called, they said that they had killed her. So I'm just trying to figure, I got no answers, no understanding of anything. It was just a point blank. That was it.
Did they say they thought she was a danger, or did she have any kind of propensities that you thought maybe she'd be dangerous?
The last time I spoke with them, they said that she was highly stressed and was carried in the back of her cage and was afraid of everybody. I had told them that she was afraid of people. So I don't understand why they would determine that she was a danger.
Yeah.
And then for only 2 days, not even giving her a chance to get used to her area.
Or call you back.
No, I agree.
You're talking
Sherry.
to dog lovers here.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're dog lovers here. We all have dogs. I'm really sorry for that, and I'm really sorry for the German Shepherd. You know, and that's one of those things. The unfortunate thing about the state of Alabama is that dogs or cats, for a lot of us who own cats, for a lot of us who own dogs, those are members of our family, you know, and so, but the law looks at the dogs or your pets as property, and that's all the rights that you have is property rights. And so when you surrender your property to another organization, there's not a whole bunch that you can do for this situation. What you can do moving forward, Sherry, is you can get the word out into the community about what this shelter was, what happened to cause your German Shepherd to pass away or to be euthanized. You can get out the information to everyone else out there so that they don't surrender their dogs to this shelter. You know, there are no-kill shelters that will not kill your animal if you surrender your animal for whatever reason. So, you know, it's unfortunate. I'm really sorry that happened. I think that the best advice I can give you now is to make sure that the public knows what happened to you so that no one else can be put in that position. No other dog or other animal can be put in that position.
We're sorry for your loss there. We got this text question in. This came in. I was in an accident and there was no cop around. Well, when he came, he was running around and laughing with the person who hit and totaled my car. She said my lights are off, which is a lie. A 2023 car has got the lights on all the time. Plus, there was a light right over her turn and all up and down Somerville Road. The police took her word and would not do an amendment to the report. And he was very ugly when I went and asked him to do the amendment. Okay, with something like that, a police report, if they get it wrong, how bad is that? Is that going to affect you in court?
Right.
Or can you contact them and say, you need to change this? What if they won't change it?
You know, this is an unfortunate circumstance. We see a lot of this. I mean, you know, police officers, they really do the best that they can do with the information that they're given. Sometimes they get it wrong. And the law in the state of Alabama is that a police report is just not admissible in court. You can't, if I wanted to, in fact, when I get in front of a jury and when I'm talking to a jury, there oftentimes at the end of a trial, the jury will say, well, why didn't I get a look at the police report? And I go ahead and have the judge explain to the jury that under Alabama law, the jury is not allowed to see the police report for the most part. So in answering your question, though, what is it that you can do now that you try to get a police report changed, won't change? Now there's a police report that with a lady that says your lights were off. You say, no, my lights are on. There is a way that sometimes you can look at your car. I don't know what kind of car you have, but as a newer model car, you can pull a report oftentimes and see if your lights were on when an accident occurred. So there's a proverbial black box on your car that may be able to give you some information if you take it to the dealership and see if you can download that data so that you can determine whether your lights were on or not. And that gives you some data that you can take to your insurance company or her insurance company and say, nah, here's some data that says my lights were actually on. If there were any cameras in the area, a lot of times what we find, and I just had this happen the other day, a lot of times what we find is that the police, they try to do the best job that they can do, but sometimes they miss a camera. Sometimes they miss somebody. A lot of people have Ring cameras. A lot of people have the Arlos or the UVs, all kinds of cameras all over their house. So if you go around the area, maybe there were some houses around the area, a business, that may have a camera that you could pull off of. But understand, police reports not admissible in the state of Alabama. Seems like it would be your word against hers, and a jury may find your way, it may not. That's one of those things.
That report is not like a judge the police officer making a judgment that's official.
That's right. So. And problem is that an insurance company will use that police report as the actual law. Oh, well, the police report says this. We always have to remind folks, insurance companies, that, hey, look, that's not admissible.
We've got Andrea on the line with a question from Union Grove. Hi, Andrea. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes. I had, 5-foot surgeries, and I kept having them because my foot would not heal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I injured my shoulder, and then my shoulder doctor ended up talking to my foot doctor and said, well, maybe she might be allergic to the implant you put in her foot.
Okay.
And so they went in and took it out, and it healed.
Okay.
And now I have tons of medical bills, and I was just wondering if there was anything that I could do.
What you're talking about is, do I have a medical malpractice claim? And that's what they're called in the state of Alabama. They're different. Medical malpractice claims are different than automobile wrecks. They're different than falling in a store. They're different than when a product malfunctions and causes you an injury. There is a whole set of statutes that govern what we have to prove as Alabama citizens if we are going to bring a claim against a medical provider, whether that's a hospital, whether that's a medical doctor, whether that's a nurse, whether that is a CNA, anybody who performs medical services to you and does it in a manner in which you think was wrong, then we have to prove our case, and that is called medical malpractice. And what we have to prove is we have to prove that the doctor performed whatever procedure, in your case, the surgeries on your foot, and then not understanding and recognizing that you actually had an allergy to the prosthetic that was put in, that medical procedure or that failure to recognize that allergy breached a standard of care. And what that means is, in the everyday down in the weeds where the goats can get it way, is that doctor performed that procedure or failed to recognize that allergy as against any other doctor in the entire country. That is the national standard of care. And we can't prove that by what I think, or by what you may think, or even by what your shoulder surgeon may think. We have to prove that a doctor committed malpractice with an expert who is, I'm assuming you had a podiatrist that did the surgery. We would have to have a podiatrist come and say, yes, that doctor should have recognized that you had an allergy to this prosthetic before doing all of these surgeries, and because of that, your podiatrist breached the standard of care and it caused you these damages. It caused you medical bills, it caused you permanent injury, it caused you multiple surgeries, it caused you time out of your life, it caused you lost wages, loss of ability to earn, all of the things that come with what you've been through. that's what we'd have to prove. It is exceedingly difficult to prove that in the state of Alabama. That's something we do a lot of these types of cases, and we talk to a lot of people who have had problems with their medical providers. But understand that the first thing you would need to do if you wanted to pursue one of those cases is you need to get your medical records from the doctors that provided you medical treatment. So that's the podiatrist, that's the surgery center where you had it, or the hospital. All of your medical records dealing with this issue you need to gather before you contact a lawyer. But you got 2 years from the date that you believe the negligence or the malpractice occurred to bring an action. So time is of the essence.
Okay. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. Tonight is Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions or text us your questions.
Yep.
The 31 Law Call number 536-0077. Heath Brooks is here, and we've got callers waiting. We've got Elizabeth on the line with a question from Geraldine. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I live next door to my neighbors, and they have a dog that is vicious, and they let it off a chain. They don't keep it chained up or anything. And every time I go out my door into my yard for any reason or all, the dog chases me down, runs me down, come up into my porch and into my home. I have to fight the dog, and I'm disabled hip-wise.
Sure.
And is there anything that I can do? I've already talked to them about it. Is there anything that can be done elsewise?
And they won't make any changes for you, Elizabeth. Very frustrating. They won't make any changes. You tried talking to them, and they won't make any changes about it.
I've tried talking. I've talked to my landlord. He's their landlord, and nothing has changed. No, ma'am.
Okay, so first off, Gerald, Elizabeth, you've done the right thing in talking to your landlord and talking to your neighbors. That's the first thing to do is, hey, let's have a conversation, see what we can do. Your landlord is now aware that there's a vicious dog, and that vicious dog is coming onto your property. So you got two different kinds of things going on. One is that a landlord has a responsibility to provide you with a habitable environment. And if that dog is causing you to lose your right to your property, then that is something that you need to continue to complain and even put in writing to your landlord, because if you wanted to, you could have a potential to break your lease with your landlord, because this is putting your life and your health in danger. The landlord is aware of this, and the landlord is the same for both of you. So that's a problem on the landlord-tenant aspect. The second thing is that if you've told your neighbor that, hey, look, you've got a vicious animal, this animal is coming onto my property, and I know you're renting it, but it is your property. You have a property right while you're renting a piece of property that no other dog, no other animal that you don't want coming onto your property can come onto your property. And you've already told your landlord, you've already told your neighbor, you can file with the circuit court in the county in which you reside a motion for an injunction and also for a nuisance to prevent that dog from coming onto your property. And that's something that you can do. I think that's something that would require a lawyer. I would certainly talk to a lawyer about your options, but you have some options here. You shouldn't have to live in terror. And that's a nightmare scenario waiting to happen for you and for a lot of the people around you.
And I think she's got 2 hip replacements, so I'm sure this is very concerning. There have been a number of animal attacks
I'm
in the county areas.
That's right. I'm a big dog lover, but I have seen what happens when vicious animals attack, and it can be a real problem, and it is a danger, and you need to be able to get out of that situation.
We've got Bobby on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Bobby. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, this is dealing with a property issue.
Okay.
I've been owning property for 31 years, and it's behind another property. It's a 15-foot easement right away to go through there. The house next to it built in carport in the right-of-way, and they won't do nothing about it.
Okay. Well, sometimes you have to force the issue, Bobby. You can't. If there's a legal right of easement, you can't impede that easement. That is a property right. It's in the deed, and so sometimes you have to file action with the court to enforce that easement. That's something that it's something we don't like to do. You don't want somebody to have to bust up their carport, but those property disputes like that, particularly involving easements, people don't understand that an easement is actually just as much a property right as the way that you own your land, which is in fee simple, and that easement cannot be impeded. You cannot block an easement. And so in that scenario, sometimes you have to get the courts involved to force the person who is breaking the easement to remove whatever is breaking it. And in this case, it's a carport.
We got this this email question from Renee. Renee had said, my 7-year-old and I were hit by a driver who ran a stop sign. My car was totaled and I hurt my back. My son wasn't hurt very badly, just some cuts and bruises. But an adjuster from the other insurance company came to our home and offered $1,000 for my son's medical bills and $400 for pain and suffering. Does that deal seem fair or not? They haven't offered me a settlement yet on my more serious injuries. They said that's going to be a while. So that kind of offer for just the son.
I always say, if an insurance adjuster is coming to your house making an offer, that seems strange to me right off the bat.
You don't like that? That feels weird.
I don't ever really hear that even happening. So that would automatically perk my spidey senses. But the other thing is that we're dealing with a minor. So anytime you resolve a case or offer to resolve a case involving a minor, someone who's under the age of 19 in the state of Alabama, you've got to seek court approval. So that may or may not, depending on the circumstances, that may or may not be fair. But there's a lot of circumstances that could go into that. One is how close to the accident. Let's wait and see how this child does. Make sure they don't miss school. Make sure their injuries are more serious than what you originally thought. Sometimes kids are hard at communicating problems, and it does take some time for the children to say, hey, look, my back's still.
if you haven't gotten your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks with Timberlake League and Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon handles family law, that's child custody, divorce, and all the like. She can be reached at 256-539-7337 or www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
We've got bad weather coming this week. Tuesday's supposed to be really dangerous. Storm damage.
Right. You know, that's one thing that I try to do. I'm not great at it, but we plan. Go around your house, take photos of the things that are in your house, because if something bad happens to your house, in the worst case scenario, your house is destroyed, your property is destroyed, an insurance company is going to say, well, I don't know that you had all these things. So make sure that you take photos. Walk around the house, and I try to do it every year. I generally do it around the new year. I'll walk around the house, I take photos of the things that are around so that if something bad happens, put it on a disc, keep a copy at my office, and that way I can say, hey, insurance company, here's what I got. If you've got receipts for things, make sure you keep those in a fire-safe box. Make sure that the fire-safe box can withstand water. Make sure that you have your important papers in a safe place. You know, the storms can roll through. They can be really bad. They can cause, like what happened up in Kentucky.
Yeah.
They can cause the worst-case scenario with very little warning. So take the time to prepare.
It's been a while since I've taken pictures. It's a good reminder.
Yeah,
take pictures, store it, put it in another place, good safe place.
That's right. You know, and make sure, you know, this is one thing that I always do. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Make sure that, you know, even after the storms have come through, secure your property. Make sure that if you get a hole in your roof, you cover it with a tarp. You know, we have this duty to mitigate in the state of Alabama.
Don't let it just soak up.
Don't let it just soak up. You know, that's one of those things that they always try to take advantage of folks that haven't mitigated their damages.
Thanks for all your calls and questions, and stay safe this week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.